Today I have a wonderful panel. And I want to start with Martin, and he'll introduce himself because we are here to talk about money. Money. Yes, we're here to talk about money. That's actually the bottom line. So starting with Martin, he'll introduce himself, and we'll go on to Wangeshi, Mpumi, and Bill.
Hello. Yeah, that's working. Right, so my name is Martin. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Mdundo, which is a music service with focus on the African consumers. We work with around 40 to 50,000 artists across Africa and have around 3 million people using our service every month. We're around 6 or 7 years old, I think. That's pretty much it. Thanks. And I'm happy to be here.
Hi, people. My name is Wangeshi. I'm a rapper, singer, songwriter. What else do I do? I think I also act sometimes. And I'm here to discuss about not being taken for an idiot during your deals and knowing what to say and what to do. Yeah.
My name is Mpumi Phillips. I'm from Share Publishing Africa. We're intellectual copyright administrators when it comes to publishing, representing composers and their rights.
Hello. How you doing? My name is Blanky, and I'm a producer, DJ, performer from Nairobi City.
Blinky will not tell you that he's signed. He's a signed producer, singer, songwriter, DJ. These guys have just been very understated. He signed to a French label. Ebusema, French label. Anyone know a French label? How many guys know people who are signed to a label that's not even here? Okay, me I know, because I know Blinky. I know, but it's a big deal. He's also TED Fellow 2014 TED Fellow. Like, these guys are not really saying the things that they've done. Mpumi has been with Share for a number of years. And she's one of the people who came and started the Share, had the conversation with Fat Publishing, and she's the one who put that together. And Wangeshi started her career a little over 5 years ago, and she has an amazing following. And Mdundo, see, everybody knows Mdundo. And I'm Wandiri Karimi, and I'm a musician who studied law. I started off as a law student, but then I studied guitar at the same time. And now I'm also the director at the Conservatoire of Music and the lead intellectual property lawyer at Karen McCourt Advocates. Ooh. So we'll get right down to it. So we want to sort of start from the point of view of how many people have had bad experiences where your music career is concerned. So that's where we are going to start. So we are going to talk, so this is therapy. Tunafungua roho. So probably starting with maybe, yes, Blinky. Maybe share with us one of the experiences you'd say was happened to you as an artist, a young artist, or when you started your career, that where a legal thing happened that was not pleasant.
So, I think for me the thing was, for a long time, like the first Just a Band project came out in 2008. So, and then the next Just a Band project came out in 2009, and then so in between the come up years, there wasn't a lot of spaces where I had to like deal with lawyers because it was like just coming up. And also, to be fair, our music scene is also coming up. So there wasn't a lot of, it was more like, are you gonna play this gig? this is how much you're gonna play. So I think it's more just being underpaid, but it wasn't like to a point where you need to call in lawyers. But I remember in 2012, so Just a Band did the project called Sorry for the Delay. And we were on tour in Europe. And there's another French label for us, and was like, it's a big label. I was like, we like you guys, and we want to work with you. And obviously it was something that was of interest to us because you're from Nairobi. There's not a lot of big labels that want to put money into your project. So this is a big opportunity. But I remember they gave us, I think it was a 30-page document that's in pure legalese, which I can grasp some of the concepts because it's masked in English. But for the most part, like, I had to hand it over to a lawyer friend because it's a big move. It's gonna dictate a lot of how the future is gonna go. So, and I remember them telling us this contract is littered with so many traps in it that it might seem exciting to sign to a big label, but you also have to be careful. One of the things that they were saying was, we want you guys to do projects that sound like some of your older projects. Then two, in the future, we know we're gonna sign it for 10 years. I was just like, in 10 years, 2012, that's gonna be 2022, I'm still gonna be signed to, life would have changed so much. And obviously life has changed a lot in the last few years. But also the other thing was that any solo project outside of the band was gonna belong to the label. I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna work on something like that. So we said respectfully no.
Cool. Maybe that's from an artist point of view. So the way labels work is that they make you sign documents that define your relationship. So lucky for you, your experience was you had a lawyer look at your contract before you signed it. But maybe from a publishing point of view, Mpumi, let's talk about some of the unpleasant kind of situations that you might come across.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a publisher, I think we deal with 80% unpleasant and 20% pleasant. So there's a lot of stories I can tell, but I think I'm going to just mention two things that I think are very common. There's a lot of times where you have a composer that is signed to a publisher, and they have a relationship with a certain brand or agency, and then they decide that they can go ahead and do a synchronization license, which is where they place your music for an advert or for a film, and they can do it on their own because they don't want to give their publisher their cut. And then obviously all goes bad. They've signed a very raw deal. They've signed agreements that are not in their favor at all. And as a publisher, you now have to come in and kind of fix the mess, And the one other biggest, I think it's the most common thing, is composers not having split sheets for their music. And then a song goes really, really big, and then now there is a fight for the money, there's a fight for who owns what in regards to that music, all because there wasn't the paperwork being done up front, so that before that song becomes big, the person who was in the studio and saying, "Go, yeah," is now claiming 100% of that song. It is very common. The one person who did the least amount of work can be the same person that comes back and claims 100% of entire song because they're seeing that it's gone big and it's now got dollar signs to it, And a lot of the times when you try to cut the middleman out, so quote unquote, that's when you get burnt the most, because a lot of times artists, composers, they don't really know the legal ramifications of certain things, especially when it comes to synchronization, it comes to contracts like, like Bill is talking about. So it's always advisable to go to either your publisher or your lawyer or your label for those kind of assistance.
Martin, from a distribution point of view, I'm sure you've had experiences.
For sure.
Let's hear some of them.
All right. Well, yeah, so we do have legal issues as well. As a distributor, as a music platform, it's mostly disputes between artists who don't know who owns the song or don't agree on who owns the song. And so and in our case, so we are not directly involved or emotionally connected to the content in that way. So in most cases, we just can't distribute it. Like if there's a song that we can't know or can't see paperwork on who actually has the song, then we just have to not distribute it. And I want to give one story, which I think was the first time I experienced it. Luckily, we don't experience it very often. Most cases are actually fine. But the first time I experienced it was probably in our first 1 or 2 years, so at least 5 years ago. And we had a new song coming out in Kenya. It featured 3 very, very big Kenyan artists at the time. One of them was living abroad at the time as well, and I think maybe still is. And so it was a really big deal. It started going on rotation and radio. It really became very big. The guy who had produced it and was apparently the one who owned it, that had the right to distribute it, gave it to us, and we started distributing it. And I think it was only up for around 12 hours. Then we were told, well, that's not, another guy came to us and said, well, that's not him who has the song. The paperwork is not there, and it's not been done yet. And what we did was we take it down. As soon as we're aware that there's an issue with it, we take it down, and we are not in a position to redistribute it until that dispute has been resolved. In this case, it was never resolved. So the song has never been distributed. It has never been able to actually make any royalties anywhere, despite the fact that it was on heavy rotation and actually was very popular for a long time. And so obviously that's a big shame for the people who invested in it and put their time into it, that they couldn't make anything from that recording. But those are the sort of issues that we normally have. As I said, it's very rare that we have it, and I don't think any has been this big as this particular asset, but it happens.
Wangeshi.
Oh, I thought you were skipping me and like going to the next one. Okay, well, mine was recent, 2017 actually. Long story short, I realized I don't own all of my music. I don't own any single song in 2017, and I wanted to split away from the person who owns the songs, and I wanted to buy back my songs, but I didn't have any writing. Like when I started off, I was 19, I'm now 25. So like when you're 19, you don't know all of these things. So in short, I don't own my songs anymore, but now I own new songs at this time because now I have all my masters that are mine, but before all of my masters weren't mine because I didn't know you needed legal writings down to know exactly what you own and what somebody else owns.
So nasikia ni kama tumesema very many big words. So let me break it down into a very simple analogy. So now when you have a song, you're a singer-songwriter, right? So you've written your song, you have your lyricist. Yeah, that word is hard. So the guy who writes the words, right? And then you have the guy who writes the music, Sindio? Then you have a producer. So all those guys have created this thing that we call the song. So let's call that the water, right? So when guys talk about masters, like that recording that is the master, imagine that this song that you've created is the water, and then the song has been recorded, so it's the bottle, right? So it's possible for you to be the person who created the water, but you don't own the bottle, right? Who knows what Sierra got for her Valentine? Sierra the singer. Okay, so yes, exactly, masters. So that whole big deal about what her husband did for her was he went and he bought all the masters off the record labels, like all the masters now belong to her. And how much do you think the guy spent? Like $10 to $15 million.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Kemboi, and so if I come up with a song,
Yes.
And then I take it to a studio, and there is a producer, so Isn't it mine? Sorry, say it again. Like, if I have a song, if I come up with a song, and I go to a studio, and I let the producer do everything, like come up with the instruments and the arrangement and stuff. I wrote it. Isn't it mine?
Did you write everything?
Yeah, I wrote everything.
But what did the producer do?
Maybe created the instruments for it.
So did he not create something? Would your song exist without that creation of the instrument?
Okay,
But
just want to come in there.
Mpumi, yes.
Just to use the same analogy of the water. Remember the water, it's H2O, right? So with the H, that is the master rights. So you've gone and recorded this song at that studio. If you have not paid for that studio time, session musicians, the producer's time and anything like that, then that studio owns that master. Because mastership is the ownership is based on who pays. So the H is for that master, and it's about who paid. So if you went into that studio, recorded stuff, never paid for anything, you don't own it. Right? Then we've got the O, right? And is it a 2O, right? So that means a double O, right? So when we come to the double O, the one O is the composer, the beat maker, the person who came up with, he's not an engineer. An engineer just presses button, makes sure the levels are right. A person who produces a song is a composer who makes the beats. And then you've come up with the lyrics of the song, correct? So you're the second O. So that's how that O becomes one unit. So the music, lyrics become its own unit on its own. The H is its own unit on its own, and that creates the water.
What if I come up with the lead sheets and everything?
The H, the 2, the O. Just chemistry. That's what tumeenda chem. H, the 2, the O, yeah.
Hi, my name is Edgar. I'm a producer, songwriter. Now, she said something interesting, and my question is, if you're an artist and you walk into a studio with the lyrics, and you record the lyrics, but you have a contract, isn't that part of, and then that studio time, isn't it put under your advance? Wouldn't they recoup once the money starts coming in?
So the studio owns the master.
But there's also an advance. There's that whole concept of an advance as an artist.
Okay.
So studio time is usually part of that advance. They charge you for every studio session.
Maybe Blinky, do you wanna talk about that 30-page document?
So-
yes.
What the studio gives you, or what the label gives you, is a loan. And they're betting on your song, whether or not the song will become successful or not. So, and this is something that I've had to learn over the last year because I'm a producer. So, for a long time, it's like I make the beats for my music. But then on the flip side, because I'm also very used to working in a collaborative environment, I'll bring in like maybe a songwriter or someone who I can riff with. And so the thing is, with your question about the advance, it's like they still, unless you came with, it's like you came to studio with your money. There's people who, they come to studio and pay for everything. So that's a very different conversation. But it's like if you come to my studio and you don't pay me and I invest in your nini and help you produce the song, it's a different conversation.
What if I'm signed to your label and I'm using your studio? Do you still
I still own the, like, if you're signed to my label, then I'm the executive producer, which means that the executive producer has executive rights.
Okay.
Yeah. There was that thing for where even two producers, no, I'll come back to that point. It's still forming in my head.
It's forming in your head. So,
I have a question.
Oh, okay, yes.
So you said if we go to a producer and pay him up front, and then your song comes out and it makes millions, what happens? if you've paid him like to produce your song and everything.
So if you pay a producer to come up with a beat for you and record you, you have paid for his time. You have not paid for his creative contribution. You have not paid out his intellectual rights, right? So a producer has two rights. He has the rights for his time, which is what you pay up front for. It's the studio fees, it's how he keeps the lights on and buys equipment and does what he needs to do, right? But he still would have, let's say for argument's sake, a 50% share on the intellectual property right of that song because he created the music.
So want to move on to the next part. So we've talked about all the bad things that can happen from the different aspects, being a musician, being a publisher, being a distributor. But now, in terms of the legal protection that you can, or rather legal preparedness, because that's what it really is, legal preparedness. Everybody is fine until there are zeros. There's something that we talk about, it's called the law of the zeros. So if you have 1,000 bob, no one will fight you for 1,000 bob. But when it gets to like 9,000 bob, it becomes a problem. When you get to 10,000, which is how many zeros? 4. When you get to now 5 zeros, which is above 100,000. So for Mpumi, that's 100,000 is like $1,000. So once you cross that bridge of $1,000, then people start. When guys have dollar signs in their eyes, can you agree when guys have dollar signs in their eyes? Absolutely not. So there's another aspect of being an artist, and I think Wangeshi, Blinky, I think there's a part of the brand of the artist, and that is dollar signs that cannot be seen. Maybe you can share your experiences about branding and endorsement specifically, because that's outside the music, but into another realm where conversations can be had. About what your value is as a person and how those deals come together, or how they do not.
I think what you're saying is, what else do I have as an artist apart from my musical abilities? This is what I got to realize. This was in 2013. No, 2016 actually. 2016 is when I realized my face is actually of value to me more than I thought it is. Because I was randomly just enjoying my day. Then somebody calls me and then they're like, are you doing an advertisement for techno? I'm like, I'm not doing an advertisement for techno. What are you talking about? He's like, go and check Facebook and tell me what you think. So I go and check Facebook and I see my face advertising a call to other people to submit photos. And I'm like, okay, to me, at that point, I was like, see Ubaya, see, they're using my face. That's normal, because I go to Instagram, people have put my face, CG, or WCW, what. So I was like, this is not a problem. Then I think the producer I was working with is the one who made me realize this is actually a problem, because your face is being used to, your image and likeness is being used to by a company without them paying you for it. So that's when I got into, I was at least tulikuwa chonjo. So we got into legal terms and we're still in court with it, so I'm hoping it goes well and I'm hoping I get, my money for my face.
Your face is on a billboard, so let's talk about that. At least what you can.
Yeah, my face is on Wayaki Way here. You can see me daily. But like my interaction with it was a bit, because it's a brand that I'd been working with for a while, and it's actually based in South Africa. So when they saw an opportunity that could be of interest, then they hit me up with it. And that's, again, when I knew that, outside of the music, and not necessarily being a mainstream artist, that there is value to what it is that I'm doing. It's just that you have to be able to be smart about it. And a lot of the people who I look up to have not only been good musicians, but they're also very good business people. So you look at Jay-Z, for example, who in a lot of his music is always talking about financial freedom and independence, which is something that we're not used to hearing, but it's necessary because particularly for a rapper who's in his 50s, you've been able to see a lot, and so you can understand, like, this is some knowledge that he's giving out for free, or at least for the price of what you pay for his project. But anyway, back to Nini. For me, it's just been slowly and steadily trying to figure out, at the end of the day, what my brand is and associating with brands that make sense. So there's things that you won't see me involved with, but there's things that, because of the character of whichever project it is, that I feel like I can, and it's not just the Tusker one. I think next week there's another one that's coming out as well. And again, it was more something that's just, it works with my vibe. But also it's been a lot of years. It's like, this is my 11th year of doing this.
Just down the same line in terms of images and so on our platform, how it works is that if you use our service for distribution, then you actually upload pictures, profile pictures and so on to our platform. And going back the lines of what we just talked about, it's quite important that you own those pictures, because who took the picture, or where did you get the picture from? Because basically, for us to be able to promote the music that's on the platform, we need some creative collateral that we can use in our different marketing materials and so on. And from a legal perspective, we can't just go on Google and take the first picture we find of Blinky and say, this is now we are pushing him. Or the other way around, if he wants us to push the music and he just sends me a picture on WhatsApp, it's not enough. Legally, it's not enough for me to actually know that I can use this picture. So keep that in mind again with marketing materials and sort of everything you do, there's an intellectual property to it. And in many cases, so our role as a digital platform and our space is to make sure that our liability are covered. So it will fall back on you. Like, we spend our time to make sure that we are covered and that we are doing the ways that by best of our means that are completely covered. So if it will fall back to you if you don't actually know if you had all the rights in this song and so on, or in the picture for that matter, or whatever else we are doing with your marketing, all the way sort of 360. And then just to add to the point before around producers and so on, I know there was given some advice here, but still have paperwork. It's not enough that someone at Ongea said, but I paid for it, so for that reason it's mine. It's not enough. You need a paperwork on it, and it can be one page that just says, this is mine. And it's a lot better than anything else, so that you actually know who owns it. The advice here is guidelines, but you can get out into a deal where the structure is completely different, or in the end of the day, if there's no paperwork, worst case scenario, that's what we are talking about here. You're much better off just having the paperwork done in the beginning, and then there's clarity around who owns what, sort of following the general guidelines.
And so publishers put your music in TV, film, and just generally monetize, make your music into money. Maybe if you could share, like, well, Africa-wide, some of the good stories that you've had at Share.
We have quite a few, just gone blank, trying to remember a lot of them. But I think it's more in terms of just dealing with composers that know the value of having a publisher and understanding, the role of a publisher and being able to monetize their works, effectively. So a lot of we have a lot of the synchronization that comes through. One of the big, good story, things I can say is one of our clients, song got put onto Black Panther, and was able to not go behind us and say, nah, I can do it myself, and actually was able to get a very fair deal when it comes to film usage in the States, because they do tend to underpay, African composers when it comes to the usage of their music.
Yes, so we've told you who we are. We've told you some of our bad experiences. We've told you some of our good experiences. We brought out what the music looks like, and an aspect that a lot of artists don't think about, your image and likeness, which is really a gold mine. Like your money walking. How many followers do you have on Instagram? That's money in the bank. How many followers do you have on Facebook? That's money in the bank. And how you use it to put food on the table, which is generally what we want. We want people to enjoy what we're doing, but we also want people to pay us for it. So I think we want to go to the Q&A session, and I think how we're going to do it is, I think we'll go section, one question on this side, another one on this side, so that everybody gets a chance. Please do not wait until it's 5 minutes to 4 o'clock to ask the question. When 4 o'clock reaches, it'll be over. So we will not take any more questions past, okay, maybe 4:10. You guys are cool. So,
hi, my name is Eugene. I am a podcaster and a music journalist. So I just want to find out from any of you, say I have an online or offline platform and I use your image or your music on the platform, but not necessarily to bring money or bring any sort of income. What are the laws and the regulations for that?
Clearly, you're looking for a legal consultation.
Yes, that's
You can find me on Instagram as Wandirike. My email is wandirike@karenmakot.com. But generally, the thing is, you already recognize that you're using somebody's image to draw traffic to your site. So technically speaking, you ought to be paying for it. One of the things that is possible, and I think we are in a community, or rather we're in an ecosystem of musicians and creatives generally who want to support other businesses. You call up, ask for permission. Sometimes they will just say yes without saying anything else. They'll just be like, cool. So in fact, these are the ones I'm using for this season. Use these ones instead. Because once you ask for permission and the person says yes, then that conversation about being in a legal tussle never comes up. Nitakutumia invoice.
Thank you very much.
Just to add to that, it's the same thing with the lawsuit she's presently having. Someone's image is a brand association, regardless of whether that brand is using it for money or anything like that. It's an association. It's saying that I think this brand is cool, I'm associated with it, you be associated with it as well, right? So it's regardless of what the call to answer is that you want, the response that you're looking for, whether it's monetary or you want to draw people through to your sites. But the fact that you're using someone's likeness to associate yourself with them, they has to be paying.
I did a track a while back, put it on YouTube, and it was stricken because of sampling. So apparently I learned you don't touch a Michael Jackson sample. He has an estate that looks into that. And so my question is, how far does copywriting go in terms of samples and all that, the samples you use in making a track?
You're a hip-hop producer, ain't you? That's the most ones who sample. I'm going to put a disclaimer, guys. First things first. I hate sampling, and I hate sampling. Sampling is one of the biggest issues when it comes to composers, especially producers. Number one, I know there's this thing in hip hop, if I use less than 8 seconds, it's technically okay. No. You use one word, you use one bar, you use 1 second, it is a sample. You make the sample unrecognizable, it is still a sample. Right? So you have to make sure that you clear it, and also there's 2 rights that you have to clear when you're sampling. If you took that sample straight off of the original CD, you've got to go clear it with the label, you've got to go clear it with the composers of that song. And most likely the label, especially if it's international, they're going to charge you a fee. If you went and replayed, it's still a sample. And but the only thing that falls away is clearing it with master rights. You still have to clear it with the composers of that song. So a sample is a sample is a sample. And unfortunately, regardless of how little or how, a lot you have taken, it is only, you are at the mercy of that original composer in terms of how much they're gonna give you for your song. And if you're dealing with me and you use one of my guys' sample, I'm most likely taking 80 or more. Because we want to encourage as well originality and new sounds, new styles coming out. If we're constantly sampling, we were just reinventing the wheel.
So I'm the opposite. I love sampling. I love sampling. I love sampling. It's like, I love it. I'm not even gonna lie. So on my new album, there's a song called Happy, which is a sample of Asha. The story with that is probably in the 20% of good things that happen. So I gotta thank my mama for praying for me. So my friend produced this track, like in 2017, then he sent it to me. And it's like, as soon as I heard it, I was just like, yes, this is that new sound. Sorry. And then so the thing is, I know someone who knows Asha. So I sent it to them, and then I started having this back and forth. But then when I mentioned to my label that I really wanted to put this song on, there was no way my album was gonna come out without that song. So I was just like, I need this song on the project. What they did though is, Asha's label is based in Paris. My label is based in Paris. So they did a trade-off, but they reached out to Asha and her team, the guys so it was 3 guys, and the label. So the label said, yes, we like how this sounds, you can use it. So the other hurdle was to convince Asha and the guys who wrote it to be okay with it. Unfortunately, they were okay with it, so I own that song now. So they signed off of it. But that's not something that happens often because it's a very rare. And I think it was just goodwill. But on the flip side, there's a song that I produced for Octopizzo, Something For You, which is like, for me, I didn't even register it for me it was more of a cultural thing that I want. Kenyans are very forgetful, so we are very what's hot now, which irritates me completely. So the thing was, I want this song to keep living. So with that song, I didn't sign it up for anything. This was like, that's for the culture, which in terms of money, it's a damn move. But in terms of what it did for the scene, it's important to me. So I didn't make any money off of it, but just it exists and it was a big song. I did a lot for Octo as well. But a couple of years ago, the guys who actually owned the song was by Slim Ali, but it's not owned by Slim Ali. It's owned by some guys in London. And they called me up and they're like, you use this song without permission and we want money for it. But I was just like, honestly, I didn't make any money off of it. So again, it was like pushing my luck, but they didn't follow it through. But all I'm saying is be sure to to clear things so that they don't sue your bum.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Roger. I am a writer and a performing artist. What's the difference between publishing and licensing? And is it me to submit my work or a composer to submit their work? Or do you have a team that kind of scours the World Wide Web for something that falls under sounds or music that you tend to work with? So, for example, getting a composition placed in a film or an advertisement or a TV series or stuff like that.
Licensing, which is on our side we call synchronization, forms part and parcel of what a publisher does for you. So I think maybe what your question may be, is what's the difference between maybe a publisher and a record company? Because those are two different things. So the record company is the ones that markets in terms of putting your song out to radio, doing your music video, putting it out to, on KATV or whatever, doing promotional marketing material, giving you tours and whatever the case may be, interviews. That's what the record label will do. So as a publisher, and the record label signs an artist. A publisher signs a composer. So remember, not every composer is an artist, and not every artist is a composer, right? So Neo started off as a composer before he even became an artist, right? He used to write songs for your Beyoncés and everything before he even made it as an artist. So his publisher would have represented him as a composer. And then within that publishing as a composer, we look after your mechanical royalties, your performance royalties. And performance royalties, before it gets confused, is not about you. We don't take your gig money. It's about your music being performed on television. So it's the income that you're getting from broadcasters in terms of radio and television. And then we look after your synchronization, which comes in with your licensing.
My name is Amin Virani Elchi, and I'm quite familiar with a lot of people on stage there. And there's a certain level of success from each person and the organizations they represent. As myself representing artists from different popular genres in Kenya, say Nielsen, you're a distributor. We are completely unable to get any information from, say, numbers. Say young people want to invest, money and time, and old people too, but want to invest money and time in music to the point where it can be sold and they can be the next Blinky or so and so speak. We are unable to tell who's making money on your platform, how much, and what that entails. So far, a lot of young people are blank, especially if they want to try and make business plans, if they want to make career decisions. Such informations, like the title of this is No More Bad Deals, but no one is talking about good deals as of yet. And I've been to a few of these summits, and that challenge is remained. I've been here since the second Ongea, or second, it had a different name back then. And it's 2019. I'm an old man with a lot of kids now, and I still don't know. I really still don't know. If that could be cleared, it would be good.
The issue of data and access to data from the music industry across the continent really is really, really big. Like sort of internationally, there's the most sort of popular organization that does it is IFPI, which is the global organization of a sort of body that lobbies for the music industry, and they release reports every year on what kind of music is being downloaded, how much are they making, and so on. The challenge that they have is that they don't actually have any sources of data from this continent because they get most of their data from record labels who are actually not very present on the continent. So we are trying to see how we can help source them with data so that they can actually release reports that says, well, this is how it's happening, this is what is happening. Their challenge, though, is that we don't represent the whole market. We represent only our market share and only the artists who are doing well on our platform. So that's really the major challenge that the industry has around data. And it's also the major reason why it's hard for both music services and for record labels to invest on the continent, because they have no data on the continent that will help them actually guide, well, how much is a big Nigerian artist making? And from which revenue streams, or Kenyan for that matter? They don't know. And so that makes it very hard for them, and they do like baby steps to sort of figuring it out. Then just one clarification, Mdundo is actually not a distributor. We are a music service. Distributor are the likes, as in between the artists and the music service. So the biggest distributor sort of globally is either you have an agreement through your record label, so that, I'm assuming that's what Blingy has, but as an individual artist, you can find a distributor online. The most popular ones are TuneCore, which is sort of the easiest DIY platform, but there's a lot of alternatives. Most record labels has a DIY sort of solution online, where you can go in, you can create your account, some of them are free, some of them are paid, and when you upload your music there, you can basically select which music platforms you want your music to be on, and that distributor will actually give you data on how big is your market share in these markets, which platforms are your music being played on, and so on. So there's the reason why we as Mdundo often works directly with the artist is because the distributors are not very big here. We hope that obviously they'll get stronger because that makes the whole process a lot easier. But today many artists works directly with us unless they have agreements with TuneCore and the likes.
It's very interesting. Our deputy president recently told a BBC journalist if he wants to find out how he acquired illegal land, that journalist should go on Google. That's pretty much how your answer goes. Really, you've said all the things that we probably already know, that it's very difficult to get that data. At the beginning of this panel, you mentioned that you do distribution in the technical term. Perhaps, based on that, to give people who want to come, it'll be an added value for Mdundo if Mdundo was to be able to make that kind of data available. And
it is available. So
and IFD what?
No, it's available, and you can actually find most data on who's being downloaded and so on through our websites. So you can just go and, I think it's called artist@mdundo.com,
yes,
and you'll find a lot of information that we put there.
Is this for the free downloads or is this for the paid ones?
It's for both.
It's for both.
So it basically compiles everything.
Also, it is possible to get data that can help someone make financial decisions.
It depends on what you're using the data for, but yes, you can find data on which artists are getting the most downloads and so on. We do not put revenue figures to it because I think that's a personal matter for the individual artists, how they do that. But you can see who gets how many downloads and so on, yes.
I have two questions. Is it possible that if cannot manage the video cost of the song, is it possible to register your songs to Skiza2 with audio song?
Okay. Ebu uliza tena.
If cannot avoid to shoot the video,
yes,
is it possible that you?
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, okay, yeah. Remember the example about the H2O. Yes, your H2O can go on to Skiza. Yes, it can.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my second question is, last year in November, in the People's Daily, I saw an article of Skiza loans. It was written that you can apply loans in Skiza for the shoots, for the as in the like a loan. Yeah.
Yes, that's a product that's available within. There are certain Skiza, PRSPs that are getting into deals like that with banks. Mm-hmm. So you would need to go check with your PRSP and make sure you read that document all through, because there are terms. So the whole basis of no more bad deals is that you need to read your agreements to understand what actually that is happening. So the way that model works, I'll speak specifically about Cellulant because I know about what theirs is. They use your distribution, like the money that you're supposed to get, as collateral. So you know how you get your land or you get your house and then they give you money. So now they're using your distribution to you as collateral for whatever loan it is that you're going to get. So I think they were starting off with car loans with Cellulant and CFC Stanbic. That was the model that they were doing. So you need to also read what that document is, because you need to know what that loan repayment is, what your interest rate is. Because if you do not read, then you will say it's a bad deal, but everything was in writing. Okay. Yeah?
Hello everyone, my name is Lebanon and I'm a rapper. So my question was, like an artist, when you have like the composer and the producer and the publisher, like who has the more power according to the concept of the song, like date of the release of the album? Because I've had a case like an artist is signed to a recording label, then the label delays the album release. So who can say something about that?
The person with the power is the people you're under. The record label has the highest power over you. And then that's if you're under a label. Yeah, basically. And I think also I don't know, in my experience, I feel like producers have a lot more leverage on the song than me as a composer and as a writer, which I've witnessed happening. Because like, let's say this song that I did with Tasker, okay, in money terms, the producer got paid more than me. So I think he owns more of the song than I do. And for me, with my words on like the choruses and the verse, I still get less. So my general view is I feel like producers have more leeway than us guys on what they own.
Blinky?
Like, for the most part, the publishing split is 50-50 for the most part. So if you have a publisher, because it's almost like if you are a chef, if you have mangoes and they're in your farm, the publisher is the person who takes the mangoes from and helps distribute it far and wide. So, which is an important way for you to actually make money, because with a lot of my other stuff, which was self-published, like I can do a lot of things, but I can't, there's conversations or there's rooms that I will not have access to. So if the publisher's job is, give me your music, I'm gonna push it to movies, that's a whole, and then with the, the 50% that's remaining encompasses the production and the writing. So in my sense, what I did was, because I'm the producer, of the 50%, if I produce the track, then 25% of it is mine, or out of that percentage. Then the 25, I'm gonna split with the writers. So if there's 3 of us, so me, Mudhoni, Mayonde, we wrote the lyrics for the song, we have 25% stake in it. Does that seem like a reasonable?
It's a way of doing it.
Yeah?
There's many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
And that's one of them.
That's one of them.
That's
yeah.
one of them. And for artists, producers, record labels, and all the disputes that come to our offices as lawyers and as just people who know what this system is about, sometimes we need to sit down and decide, what do you want to do? Do you want 100% of nothing? Or do you want 25% of $1 million bob? Yeah. That's a decision you need to make from earlier on. Like, you decide, am I in this for fame, which is equals to 0 shillings in the bank? Or are you in this for food on the table? So when you're having a discussion, or when you're bringing in a team, because sometimes not many people will be able to walk into Kairon Makot and say, I want to hire you as a lawyer. But I gave a lot of pro bono services to friends and family for a long time before, now I bill. I don't do free gigs, just saying. So musikuje, sifanyangi pro bono. But when we are walking into the conversation, I do know a whole range of things about how the business works and how these conversations go. So if you're going to be an artist and you want to be successful, Calligraph, Blinky, Wangeshi, and all the guys who we are seeing on the billboards who are doing big things are all walking into those rooms with people like us. And why they're doing that is not because they don't know the language. They can speak English, they can speak Kiswahili. But the way those contracts are set up, like you're asking about who has say, maybe your question should be, how much am I making when that song comes out? That should be your question, not who has the say. Time for ego, outside. Time for business, on the table. Just get somebody who will be able to have that discussion with you. So?
Yeah, can you like tell us if you can have that date of the album release, or you can decide that by your own?
Album release doesn't matter if you're not, there is no plan to make the money off that album release. How is that rollout happening? Is there money for the rollout? Are you going to do a tour? What are you doing? Like what is the team around that album release? The date of the album release doesn't matter if it's not going to make it become money, right?
Okay.
Sawa?
Thanks.
I think it's also, it goes back down to what do you have in your contract?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can stipulate that you want an album date release on your contract. Remember, a contract is typed by a human being on a computer. There's a delete, there's a space, there's all kinds of buttons that the computer has. That can be, where things can be changed. A lot of the times, contracts are called agreements because we both as parties, have to agree on it. So those are the kind of things, if you have certain conditions that need to be met for you as an artist, you need to put them out on the table and say, can we have it in the contract? That's why it's very important for you to have your contracts.
And also, I just want to add one thing. There's something called strategy, and is a big part of album rollout. So if you're on my label, for example, hypothetically, I feel like there's going to be a very good reason to push an album date. So it's like, it's not just coming out of nowhere. So it's also something that you need to think about at the back of your head. Do you just want, if you finish this project today, do you want to put it out next week? You can, but how effective is it going to be? Because like there's an ocean of music out there. How are you going to make your project have a splash if you are also in a hurry to put it out? There's a lot of things to think about.
Maybe your last album, I think we had songs from it maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long was your album process, if you would like to?
I'd been working on it for around 2 years. The first song that came out on it came out at the end of 2016, but it wasn't even gonna be a part of the album up until almost the last week when we were listening to all the projects, and everyone was like, this song has to be a part of the project. And I wasn't gonna be like, no, it's been out, so for me, that one song, because of the places that I'd seen it go, I was like, of course it makes sense for it to be a part of the project. And even when I look at the numbers, it's one of the most successful songs on the project. So I wasn't gonna be like, I'm not gonna listen to my team. I know everything that's right. It's like, in terms of as a body of work, it makes perfect sense for it to be on the project. So it took a bit of time to work on it.
Wangechi, you're working on an album. How long has it taken you to work through that project and your album release? Just as an example of how these things work.
Wow. I've worked on albums for so long until the point where I realized I don't own my music. So me being a rapper, I decided to take the mixtape way, because mixtape is very quick steps. I don't even know, you can sample on a mixtape. Can you sample on a mixtape? Oops, sorry.
Until you get the call,
But, yeah, mixtapes are, making money from a mixtape.
You're not making money because you're not selling it, but the basis of that music, getting some kind of airplay, you're getting gigs out of it, you're still making money from it. You can still be sued.
Wow, okay. I'm also learning Zambia. So basically, me, I'm an independent artist. So most of my decisions are my decisions, and Blinky's under label. So his decisions, he has a bigger team behind him than I do. So an album will come out when I say the album will come out. And if I'm paying for all my production and I get all my paperwork done, I run the show.
As we're talking about completing albums and sort of releasing things, one part of the legal aspect that we haven't talked too much about is basically, well, you have to figure out the legal things between the creators. But as soon as you start putting the music out, I think there are some people who mentioned Skiza and Ringback Tunes, or YouTube has been mentioned a few times and so on. And of course, there's ourselves. You need to think about also, okay, what deal do I take in terms of distribution, and how do I protect myself in that sense? And so I think that's that's quite important as well to think about. And just to sort of, I know that Blinky works with a label, so I'm sure they might have their deals in place. But if you're an individual artist, you can pretty much take whatever deal that you fit is good. There's no sort of standards. So just to sort of give a bit of, in my experience, a bit of guidelines, I think there's two things I would really watch out for. One of them is obviously whether or not what you're doing is exclusive or non-exclusive. So are you tying yourself into this platform and only using this platform for the next, Blinky mentioned earlier, 10 years or whatever it might be? And what are you actually, that's a cost because you are basically giving something to someone else. And besides that is control. Do you have the control of the music thereafter? Can you change it? Can you take it down? Can you move somewhere else? So I think in terms of evaluating the different deals that are out there and what you want to go for, really keep in mind what is my control over this content after I put it on the platform, and what is my ability to terminate or stop this partnership if it's not working. And if those terms doesn't seem in your favor, then expect more in return, up to the point where it might be advances or whatever. But if those terms seems to be fair, if you're getting 100% or whatever, well, then you can expect less in return. I think just to touch on that as well.
So my question is to Mdundo. I've just learned that it's a music service, and so do artists who like have their music in Mdundo get royalties? And also, I also have another question for all of you. If, let's say, I want to put out something, let's say that is controversial and let's say like not allowed, let's say like an example, Dundaing, something close to Dundaing, like will you guys post it, like especially from Dundo, will it be posted if it's unethical per se to the society? And then also will it be published if I'm talking about something that is not accepted in the community? Yeah.
So just for your second question, could you repeat to like clarify? Just clarify again.
Okay. Let's say I'm talking about like in regards to my music, I'm talking about something that is unethical, like to. Yeah.
You mean drugs, or let's give us an example so that we can.
Like Dundaing, like something.
But there's a song called Dundaing.
Okay, let's say like just per se, let's say like something like Lambalolo, something that has so much, not so much views, so much sexual explicit content.
Okay, stuff, yeah. Explicit content. Okay. Mpumi, you wanna? Okay.
Well, yeah. So first thing, yeah, we do pay royalties. So when you create an account on Mdundo, you'll see sort of how many downloads you have and the royalties that you're making from those downloads. Our revenue model is that music is free on our platform, but we make money through advertising, and that advertising revenue is then split between the artist who gets the downloads. There's a lot of information online about it that I would refer you to, and as I said before, check out the different other options and see what works for you and your music. It's not necessarily that one service or our service is the only one that is suited for you. In terms of explicit content, that is the technical term in the industry. It's called explicit content. And how it works is when we work with any content that's explicit, then we, from a customer protection perspective, have a right to sort of say, well, this content is explicit. But there's nothing we would say no to. At least I haven't been in a situation where we'd be like this, unless it's illegal in the sense of like, what we talked about earlier, in terms of rights. But in terms of sort of what you're talking about or sort of those sort of things, the technical term is explicit. And that we just warn the customer that this is an explicit song, but you can distribute it if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, what you deem as unethical, it's depending on who you are dealing with. So if you're obviously going to, a label that is a gospel label and you are talking very sexual and cursing and doing whatever, they're not going to accept that music because it's not falling in line with what they are as a label. So it has, but I don't think there's ever any real music that it would be deemed unethical in a broad sense of that word. You know what I mean? Because there's a place for everything. I mean, Marilyn Manson used to talk about killing people and eating them and doing whatever, but he was one of the biggest rock stars, in the States. So there's a place for everything. It's just making sure that it works for for what you're trying to do. If you're trying to now get yourself, your song on a Coca-Cola advert and you're talking about drinking Pepsi, they're not gonna, you know what I mean? There's a place for everything.
It's very hard for musicians to find advocates. So personally, I use, when I have, let's say, something I want a lawyer to see, I'll go to my friends who have studied law, because I'm scared I might go to an advocate company and the rates might be so high. So I really want you to shed light on that for other artists, because people don't really talk about that.
So there's several things. That's a good place to start. First of all, like, you always know somebody who's studying law. But I also say law is like medicine, like engineering, like all those things. So engineering, you don't go to a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. They're all very different people. When you have a neuro problem, you go to a neurologist. You don't go to a cardiologist and tell them my head is aching. So the thing about law is intellectual property is a very niche kind of space, and we are a number of us, but there's not enough of us that do what we do. The good thing, though, is that there are several initiatives. First of all, there's I'm telling you this, please take this down, copyx.org. So this is a class it's an online class while it's going on now, and the class is an online class on copyright, which is just, it's 12 lectures. You go through the lectures. You don't have to sit the exam, but it's free information that's out there that tells you just everything you want to know about copyright, right? So there are very many resources. I said copyx.org, copyx.org. There are classes that take place here, but it's too late now, but they happen between January and May. So now you know for 2020, there's a class that will be happening between January and May, and I teach one of those classes. So there are resources like that. So your lawyer friends, copyx.org, there are certain initiatives. Gota does something, Kekobo has lawyers on, Kekobo is Kenya Copyright Board. They have awareness kind of spaces. There's an awareness week in September that happens every year for the Law Society of Kenya, that you can go and you sit and people will give you information, and you'll find lawyers like us who will give you free information over that legal awareness week. So there are spaces, but do follow people like us, because I do put up stuff up on my Instagram, on my Facebook. Wandiri K, that's my Instagram handle. And yeah, so maybe you never know. You might bump into me. I'll be around. Let's have a conversation, right?
Can I answer in a very non-lawyer way as well? Just make sure you write everything down. Like, everyone has email. If you send an email to a friend just saying what you just discussed with that person, whether it's being a producer or someone else, then you got a track record. And it might not be a perfect contract, and you might not have thought all the elements through, and you might not be an expert, but that basically is proof that there was a communication between you and whoever that person was, and it said so and so and so. It said, I'm buying the rights, or I'm paying for your studio time even, because the guy might say you never paid. If you have an email saying I'm doing it, well, I did it, then you have some proof in the future, and those pieces are gonna help your case, or maybe even avoid it ever becoming a case. So just make sure you write it down somewhere, even if it's in your own language and doesn't look legal at all.
Mpumi?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is lawyers are expensive. I mean, and they deservedly so, you know. But it's very important to use the network that you do have. You know, if you've got a manager, that is part and parcel of their roles, to kind of look over those type of contracts and be able to use their network to help you. If you've got a publisher, us as a publisher, even if it's not publishing matters, if you've got another contract that you want us to take a look at and we have to refer to another lawyer to take a look at, those are services that you can do within the network that you have. So it's important to use your network until you get to that point where you have your own lawyer that you either have on a retainer or you can use, as and when you need to. But it's important to have your networks.
Well, in Kenya, there is a problem with this media. They normally play the song from outside, and local Kenyan artists, they don't want to play. So how can you help us about that? Thank you.
So Punch Kobole, there is legislation that is there now that actually covers that, and they're supposed to have, I think, if I remember right, it was 60-40. Yeah. So there is legislation, and the implementing organizations are actually working on that. So it's not that it's a journey that has started over 20 years ago, and we are not where we were. The government of Kenya is trying to do as much as it can, and we also have a responsibility as ourselves. The kind of music Blinky does, nobody ever thought would be played, but now that's what we are listening to all the time. So you do your art, you let us worry about that other end. The government is doing what it can, and we can. But now we have to wind up now, and I'll have everybody give a parting shot. Maybe start from outside Kenya, Mpumi.
I think for me, this panel has been very important in terms of making sure that you understand what your rights are and you understand what rights you need to have protected. Make sure that you've got your paperwork in line. Ask people. The industry, in as much as people can say is closed up, there are people out there that are willing to help. And free information is readily available. Yeah, just make sure that your paperwork is on point, guys. Have your song split sheets, have your producer agreements, label agreements, publisher agreements, and everything being aligned as well.
To summarize things, well, I think for me the most important part is around understanding what you're getting out of contracts versus what you're giving from them. I think we've discussed a lot about the different elements of rights, but remember that if you do, in terms of protecting yourself from deals from outside, from stakeholders and so on, I think that is something to remember. I feel that there's often a very big focus on what am I getting out of it, which is great, but remember to also think about what am I giving in. What is it actually that this deal is telling me? And there might be another deal that is giving you less today, but might be a better investment in the future. Maybe it doesn't lock you down for the next 10 years and so on. So I think that is just something I would say in terms of protecting yourself. Make sure to weigh up both what's for you, what you get and what you give.
In terms of me as an artist, what I'd like to have known from the time I was starting off at 19 years is figure out a way. I know not everybody has money, but lipeni producers. Because when it comes back to going round, as in, I don't know what I'm trying to say, Wandiri. In short, what I'm trying to say is, if you can figure out a way to pay for your music, it's an easier route than just be like, this is my friend, and tunafanya ingoma me release, mefika the beat, whatever. In the long run, it won't be beneficial to you. And a second thing I didn't know in the beginning of when I started off is, societies like Prisk, MCS, okay, not MCS, I know Prisk. Societies like Prisk, they can really help you earn royalties from your music. And I saw my first paycheck last year, and I wish I knew it earlier because then I would have invested the money wiser around it. Yeah.
And your projects, new projects.
Oh yeah, my new projects. I have a video I'm releasing on Monday. Be on the lookout. It's coming out on YouTube, and yeah, we'll go on from there.
Handled.
Twitter, Wangeshi Music. Instagram, Wangeshi Music. Facebook, Wangeshi Music. Everything else is just Wangeshi Music.
Okay.
Yeah, so my parting shot would be before a song is released, and this is something that I wish someone told me, is make sure you have the paperwork correct. Even if it's like a simple one, but just make sure that even if it's your friend, it's like, I wrote this, so it's very clear going forward, because you never know. It's like, the odds might not be in your favor, but every so often, good luck falls on someone, and that song could it's easier to sort out that mess when that song is not big than start trying to solve it when the song is everywhere. And it's like, there's an element of puffiness that comes in. It's like, I did more than you, I did less. And no one wants to admit that they did less. It's always like, I did more. So it's just good to be able to keep that.
Agree before the zeros.
Yeah. Projects, I have a video coming out tomorrow for the song Mungo Alali. I have an album out that came out in October. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. It's my best project so far. My handles, Hey Blinky, everywhere.
We do this because it's important for our creative industry to grow. I'm Wandiri Karimi, Wandiri K on Instagram. Hit me up. I might just answer one or two of your questions, right?